Hi everyone, this is Jonah with Green Iowa AmeriCorps, and today we're going to be talking about monarchs and milkweed. So, monarchs, you probably recognize monarch butterflies because they are one of the most recognizable butterflies in North America. They are a large black and orange butterfly with a black and white spotted body, and they are very numerous in Iowa grasslands and meadows during the mid to late summertime. So what kind of butterfly is a monarch? So the scientific name of a monarch is Danaus plexippus, and that includes it in part of the tiger butterflies, and those types of butterflies specialize on milkweed plants specifically. And those are also in the Nymphalidae family, or the brush-footed butterflies, which is has the most species in it, and it has over 6,000 species of butterfly just in that family. Now, when you're talking about monarchs, it's also important to differentiate that to make sure you're looking at a monarch as opposed to a viceroy. Now, a viceroy is a look-alike, it's a mimic of the monarch. And the way to tell the difference between the two is to look for the line on the bottom wings, like the image on the right shows. Monarchs do not have that line at all, whereas the viceroy does. Another detail is that viceroys tend to be much smaller than monarchs. While they're not in the same genus and they're different species, they are in the same family, that huge species of family called the Nymphalidae. And so just talking about the range and habitat of monarch butterflies, as you can see in this map down here, they are present all across North and Central America, southern Canada, the United States, Mexico, and other countries. They can basically be found anywhere with milkweed plants, usually fields and meadows. And the map shows that they've actually been introduced to several areas. So they've been introduced in several areas in the Pacific and even some areas in the Atlantic. And the image of the white monarch in the bottom right is actually a morph of the monarch butterfly that's found in Hawaii, which is just known as a white monarch. So the life cycle of the monarch butterfly, depends entirely on milkweed plants. Without milkweed, monarchs are not able to reproduce. They're not able to turn into adults. So it's just an incredibly important plant. And so there are four general stages to the monarch's life, and that would be the egg, where it hatches out of the egg, and then it becomes a caterpillar. And then when it's a caterpillar, it just spends that whole time eating and gaining size until it eventually turns into a chrysalis. And then after a while, the chrysalis will split open and the adult butterfly will emerge. And then the butterflies will find a mate, and then they will produce eggs, and then the whole process starts over again. And the image in the bottom right shows that the caterpillars actually go through 5 kind of separate growth spurts called instars. And this takes about 2 weeks of time. They start off very, very small, and then they become massive compared to their initial size. And the eggs themselves are also incredibly small. They're even hard to see on leaves, which is where the butterflies lay the eggs. Sometimes what's interesting is that you can find all 4 stages of the life cycle on one plant. You can see an egg on a leaf, you can see a caterpillar eating a leaf, you can see a chrysalis hanging from a leaf, and an adult butterfly flying around and landing on the plant. And so the caterpillars for monarchs eat exclusively milkweed, and kind of like we saw on the last slide, they grow up to 2,000 times their original size over 14 days, and they do this just by eating leaves. Adult monarchs eat nectar from a huge variety of flowers. They're not just drinking milkweed nectar. Now, monarchs do have many predators, though. Birds will eat them. Other insects like wasps will attack and kill them. Certain animals will eat the eggs or will eat the caterpillars. So talking about milkweed, we've mentioned milkweed a couple of times. Well, what is it? Milkweed describes a group, it's a genus of over 200 species of plant. One thing that they all have in common is that they produce latex, kind of a white, milky material that comes out of damaged leaves and stems. And monarch caterpillars actually get around this by eating around the veins that produce this latex. And so one way to tell if it's a milkweed is to break off a leaf or a stem and see if latex will come out. And so, as we've mentioned, milkweed plants are necessary for the monarch's life cycle. Without milkweed plants, the caterpillars don't have anything to eat, and then you wouldn't be able to have any adult butterflies. And since there are just so many different species of milkweed, the flowers actually can look very different. You know, like in this image below, there are pink kind of star-shaped flowers, pink more round flowers, there are orange flowers, and just a huge variety across the world. So an interesting thing that monarchs do is they actually migrate. They migrate over really huge distances. Monarchs that are living up in northern North America will migrate all the way down to Mexico, where they'll spend the winter. And some are able to do this in one generation, while others will actually go part of the way, lay eggs, and those eggs will hatch and eventually turn into butterflies, which will continue the journey for them. So it takes several generations just to make it down and back up again, just kind of like this map illustrates. And it depends on where they are in the US that kind of determines what kind of plan that they do for migration. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you learned something about monarch butterflies. So keep watch for all of our other Monarch Days related content this week.